I'll open this video up with a general statement. Sometimes fandom makes people blind when it comes to trying to objectively talk about sports. And I fear that that may be what's happening here, because today we are responding to the Dylan Larkin trade discourse that involves the Anaheim Ducks, and that also involves Cutter Gauthier. Now, I know some of y'all might be looking at this video saying, Lego, what the hell? Dylan Larkin ain't getting traded for Cutter Gauthier, right? Or maybe you're of the opposite opinion. You're on the other side of the fence saying, yeah, what are you talking about, Lego? Why is that ridiculous? Dylan Larkin is the captain of the Red Wings. He's a first-line center. He's a commanding player that should get value in return. Cutter Gauthier is a totally fine and reasonable expectation to get sent back over to Detroit, man. And that's where I'm gonna have to put my finger on your lips and try to stop y'all from talking, because I saw this posted on Twitter the other day. This tweet had 400,000 views, which is not a good sign when your tweet's got more replies than it has likes and retweets. But Todd Hattrick went out there and posted this saying, Anaheim is not a team confirmed on Dylan Larkin's list, but if the Ducks want to sell him on the future, the pitch is obvious. Carlson is the franchise face. Larkin becomes the veteran center who makes the kids dangerous now. Detroit's price? Cutter Gauthier. Because right now, Pat Verbeek has got a major problem on his hands. Hashtag Red Wings, hashtag fly together, yada yada yada. The top reply says, who do people think Dylan Larkin is? This tweet has 492 likes, which totally ratios the first tweet over here. Look, the reason this has gotten traction is because JFresh went out there and posted about it on his own Twitter page. Wings fans really have to get used to the idea that they're not getting a player like Cutter Gauthier or Wyatt Johnston or Boldy for a 30-year-old player demanding a trade with a very small trade list in Dylan Larkin. And I'm not gonna use Todd as an example and paint an entire section of Red Wings fans with one brushstroke, but I will go out there and criticize this tweet in particular. Now, is Pat Verbeek in a major pickle right now? Yeah, I'd say that he probably is. Cutter Gauthier needs a contract. He, alongside of Leo Carlson, were both eligible to have signed contracts from 1 year ago up until now. Leo Carlson would have been okay with 8 years by $9.5 million a year. But Pat Verbeek was like, nah, sorry, you only went out there and posted up 45 points in 76 games. Even with the cap going up and all these other players getting big money deals, we're not going to give you that amount of money. And then it backfired right in his face, because Leo Carlson, who would have accepted a $9.5 million AAV 8-year deal a year ago, ended up signing an $18 million 5-year deal with the Philadelphia Flyers on an offer sheet that the Ducks then had to subsequently match. Look at the amount of money he's making in the first year, just from bonuses mostly alone. $20,800,000. Then he's got $19 million the next year. Again, the majority of that money being paid out to him on July 1st via salary bonus. Leo Carlson's contract just totally messed up the Anaheim Ducks, and it caused Pat Verbeek to have to pay up for Pavel Mintyukov, a guy that was nowhere near $7 million caliber, but he would have to get signed to that because there was an offer sheet threat looming over him as well. Now, the Ducks don't have enough money to sign Cutter Gauthier, a guy who could reasonably ask for $15 million a year now, since Leo Carlson is getting 18. And with all these other prices, Kyle Connor's getting 12, you've got Pavel Dorofeyev, who's getting 11, Kirill Kaprizov's making 17. The winger market is different now than it was for all those years when we thought that Mitch Marner and his 10.9 was the worst contract in the world. Cutter Gauthier could up that ante. So I'm not going to disagree with the sentiment that Pat Verbeek has a major problem on his hands. He does. But getting out of that problem is not going to involve trading Cutter Gauthier to Detroit for Dylan Larkin. If it were that easy, then maybe it would have been done by now. But anybody looking at these players would comfortably say, hey, wait a minute, Cutter Gauthier for Dylan Larkin is an absolute steal for the team getting Cutter Gauthier. He's 22 years old and coming off of a 69-point year with 41 goals. And he was a point per game in the playoffs. No wonder this guy wants $15 million a year. The cap is growing, he's 22 years old, he recently turned 22, and he's already one of the most lethal goal scorers in the Pacific. Dylan Larkin, on the other hand, has never broken 80 points. He has been a first-line center, despite being probably second-line caliber on a cup-winning team, which is not his fault. I mean, he's been forced to do that. Detroit hasn't necessarily been great. But with the context of him asking out, submitting a very limited trade list, and Stevie Y having all the leverage because Dylan Larkin signed on till 2030, they don't need to trade him if they don't want to. There's no reason for anybody to think that Steve Yzerman could gambit all of these factors in order to get a Cutter Gauthier trade with Anaheim to go through. Further to that point, David Pagnotta said this last week on Sekeres and Price, he hasn't gotten the sense that Dylan Larkin is even interested in going to Anaheim. If that's not possible, then that totally shuts down all the trade talk. Now, I get that part of Todd's take is that you can pitch the future of Anaheim to Dylan Larkin, and maybe that opens his eyes to what could be, and it opens his ability to say, yeah, sure, I'm actually willing to go Disney. But I just don't know if that's really going to happen here. Now, Jay Fresh, he posted about it. It got a lot of traction. Top replies from the Grindline guys. They say, hey, I don't think Red Wings fans are actually expecting Yzerman to get Boldy or Wyatt Johnston or Gauthier for Dylan Larkin. It's Yzerman's way of saying the teams you want to go to don't have anything we want. Open your list or we'll see you at camp. Jay Fresh then responds, if Yzerman wants to play hardball, that's fine. I said that I think he should, but any Wings fans who are actively expecting to receive a player like that in return are setting themselves up for disappointment. So he's not disagreeing with the Grindline folks, he is just talking about a different point. Hey, Wings fans, stop thinking that Gauthier or Johnson or Boldy is coming over for your team's captain. He's not that good. Then there is another tweet over here. Anaheim gets Larkin, Kopp, Rasmussen, Detroit gets Granlund, Kreider, Killorn, that's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Wyatt Johnson for Larkin doesn't have to be 1-for-1. Why the hell would Dallas ever do that trade? Boldy is in a different tier of player as Larkin. I don't care if he's not a center, he's elite, especially on his $8 million contract. And then I'd say this is probably the most reasonable response of the bunch. Wings fans are expecting Larkin to be at camp. Other teams need to realize that Yzerman isn't just going to give him away because Dylan Larkin wants to leave to a very narrow trade list. His contract is even more valuable now after the Leo Carlson offer sheet drama. That I will agree with as well. We did speak about Elliot Friedman, who spoke about that on 32 Thoughts, how Larkin's value at $8.7 million till the end of 2030 is now a lot higher because of Leo Carlson. Like, is Dylan Larkin $10 million a year worse than Leo Carlson? Like, I get that he's not as good, but he's not that bad. Like, yeah, 67 points in 74 games. Leo Carlson had 67 points in 70 games. Carlson's better, but like $10 million better? I don't know about that. So, there is more value to Dylan Larkin. It's just, anybody thinking that Cutter Gauthier is a reasonable return, I think you are setting yourselves up for disappointment here. So with that said, you can let me know your thoughts in the comments section. How do you feel about this Larkin, Gauthier, Anaheim trade discourse? Do you think Larkin would go over to the Ducks? Is that a possibility here? We already saw the struggle that the Red Wings went through in order to get this guy to expand his list by 1 to include Dallas. Could the Ducks also be on that list at some point? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.